Hello. Goodbye. Hello. Goodbye. Hello. Okay, I'm done. What's up, everyone? I am Easton Bennett, and I am back with some cool information that I'm ready to teach you guys. Now, today's video is going to be more about photography rather than videography. I know my services are mainly video production, but I do photography here and there, and I do enjoy it. So I just want to teach you guys a little bit about that. This is more for you amateur photographers. I don't think anyone's an amateur photographer because anyone can be a photographer, and it's a lot of fun. So this one's for you guys that maybe you guys are just getting into photography or want to get into it or just curious about how things work. I'm going to show you how I edit photos on my mobile phone. Now, it's a lot easier than you guys think, and if you guys are wondering, well, why do you even have to edit your photos? Why can't you just post them after you take them out of your camera? Well, some people do that, and some people like to edit them. Me personally, I like to edit them because I give it my personalized style and my personalized feel. I like photos that are cooler rather than warmer and kind of moody. Now, if you guys don't know what that kind of stuff is, we'll talk about that a little bit when we begin editing, but it really depends on the person and how they like to edit, or if they want to edit all. I do edit my photos, so I'm going to show you guys my process, and maybe I can teach you a couple things, because when I was starting editing, I knew absolutely nothing, and all of the sliders and the widgets and the switches and the turns and cables and knobs, there was none of that stuff, but all of the sliders, I wasn't sure exactly what each one of them did, and I'm here to kind of show you guys that so you can skip that whole process. So to get started, let's talk about some of the apps that you can use to edit photos on. Now, I'm sure there are a million different apps that you can edit photos on your phone, but the main one that I use is Lightroom Mobile CC. I know there's VSCO. A lot of people edit pictures on VSCO. Instagram, I don't know too many people that edit pictures on Instagram, but you can edit them there. They have tools, and I'm sure there's a plethora of other options, but those are the three that I'm familiar with. And the main one we're going to be talking about today is Lightroom. Lightroom is a free app to download, and there's also a paid version. Now, the paid version gives you a couple more tools and a couple more things to make your photos that much better, but it's not necessary to get great looking photos. So I will stop rambling. Let's actually get into the editing and show you guys my process for editing photos on my mobile device. Let's go. Okay, so first off, you're going to want to open Lightroom, and I've taken 4 different photos and put them in this folder here called Lightroom Tutorial, just so you guys don't have to scroll through. As you can see, there's 1,600 pictures, and have me pick out some. So I picked out a couple already that we're going to edit. 3 of them are raw pictures, and 1 of them is a JPEG. Now, if you guys don't know what that means, you always want to be shooting in RAW if possible. Now, if you don't have the paid app of Lightroom, you won't be able to edit the raw pictures, so you're obviously gonna have to shoot in JPEG. But if you want your full editing capabilities, shooting RAW is what you need to be doing. Now, to explain what shooting RAW means, or what even the term RAW means, think of it as cooking. So when you're cooking, you have all of these different ingredients, and when you put them all together and you put it in the oven and it comes out, that's your final meal, right? Now, that final meal is like a JPEG. So you can picture RAW as all of the ingredients. When you are editing a photo, there's a list of metadata that goes into the picture. So if we're talking about a JPEG, it's taking all of that data and baking it into one image and turning that into a JPEG. Now, that's not very editable because you can't change each and every little thing, right? Now, RAW, on the other hand, keeps everything separate and doesn't bake it into one. So it allows for more flexibility when you're editing, and it doesn't allow your image to deteriorate as much when you're editing a raw photo, so it gives you a little bit more wiggle room. Now, if you guys obviously don't have the paid app, don't worry about it. You don't have to shoot raw. You can just edit some JPEGs until you level up to that paid app or different type of software where you can edit raw photos. So I picked 4 different images. 2 are pictures of me, so we can work around some skin tones. 1 is a landscape of a building in Denver, and then the other one is a product photography, which is some playing cards, a phone, and some AirPods on there. So let's start with this first image, and I'll show you guys how I edit it. Now, the steps I take when editing my photos varies per photo. Sometimes I like to just slap on a preset and go with that to make it quick and easy, and other times I'll edit a photo for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, couple hours, until I really got it how I want it. But when I'm in a hurry, I just slap on a preset, and I have my own preset. So if we were to slap a preset onto this thing, Utopia, boom, brightens everything up, makes it a little bit teal, and there's the before and after. So that's what it would look like if I threw my preset on there. Obviously, you could do some tweaks, like change the exposure a little bit, but that's what would happen if I threw my preset on. But for this case, here's a couple more presets, by the way. But for this case, I don't want to use a preset, so we're going to reset everything. I want to edit this one from scratch just so I can explain it a little bit more. So the first step I take when editing a photo is I actually go to the light tab here. Now, under the light, you're going to have exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. When you import this, apparently this already has some changes to my whites and blacks, but we'll change that as we go. So right away, I don't really touch the exposure just because I like to do it at the end to brighten it or darken it depending on how my edit goes. So the first thing I like to do is bump up some contrast. Now, when I edit my photos, I like very contrasty pictures, very punchy images. Some people like desaturated, not very contrast images, but my personal preference, I like a little bit of contrast in there. So about +5 or +10, I like to get it in there, but we'll go +5 for this picture. And then for my highlights, I usually like to pull those down. You can see what it does when you take it left and right. It's gonna blow out all your highlights, like my computer screen here. And if you bring it all the way down, it looks kind of gray. So I like to pull that down just a little bit, but not a ton, just so there's some detail on the highlights. The highlights are obviously the brightest part of your image, so that's where that comes from. Like I was saying, I want to pull them down just a little bit, just so I can get that screen in focus, get some detail in that computer screen. You can kind of see it now when I zoom in. Next thing I want to do is shadows. Usually I like to pull up my shadows a little bit on this one. I like to pull up the shadows and bump down the highlights, but for this one, I'm going to pull them down a little bit just because there's some cords on the floor and there's a speaker and my foot you can kind of see, and I don't really like that look. So we're going to pull those shadows down a little bit. When you're messing with that shadows tab, whatever's in the shadows, if you pull that up, you're going to be able to see your shadows more. Now that we have the shadows and the highlights set, you can kind of see before and after. Very bright, and now it's a little bit darker and moodier. Whites, my hat looks a little gray there, so I'm going to bump up the whites just a bit, but not much, okay? And then blacks, that'll crush your blacks even more. So they'll make your blacks even blacker, and your whites makes your whites even whiter. So if you can see if I crank this black all the way down, it makes the whole image black. I don't want to do that though. I just want to bump down a little bit to darken that bottom just a hair more, and we'll go with that. So that's what we did to start at the beginning here. We'll go to the color now. Color wise, I like my pictures a little bit cooler, so we're going to put the temp down a little bit on this one. Obviously you can see I don't want to go overkill like that. That's blue and that's very yellow, but I want to add some blue tint into there, so maybe about right there. Okay, I don't really mess with the tint unless there's a distinct green or purple tint, then I don't really mess with it very much. Let's take down the saturation about 5. Vibrance, we can take that down about 5, just because I don't want this image super saturated. I kind of want it in like a dark, moody office type feel. Okay, that's good there. Now before I go into all the individual colors like this, I'm gonna wait and go to my effects. Now the clarity, if you pump this up, you can obviously see it gets super textury, and if you go down, it gets super blurry. So personally, I like to bump my clarity up a little bit just so it adds some texture and you can kind of see what's going on in the image. But if you're shooting a beauty model or someone's skin where it needs to be super smooth, this is one of those sliders you'd pull down just so you can get those blemishes off the face, like a pimple, a wrinkle. Those will kind of smooth those out a little bit. In this case, I don't care that I have zits, so we're gonna bump it up. Oops, we're gonna bump it up just a little bit. So we'll go to about 30. Now it looks a little better, starting to look a little bit more how I like it. One thing I can tell about this image is that I do want a vignette on it. Now a vignette obviously makes a circle around the image. You can see here, if you go to the right, white circle, black circle. I do not like to go overkill on this one at all. Like -2 is all I'm gonna go there. So that just gives a little faint ring around the image, and it kind of draws the eyes towards the center of the image a little bit more. Now we have the effects. We'll go to detail, sharpening. Usually I like to just keep sharpening where it's at. Noise reduction, if you shoot it in super low light, that's where you'd slide up the noise reduction and get that out of there a little bit. But in this case, it looks fine to me. Let's go down to the grain though. Let's go back to the effects and go down to the grain. I like to add a little bit of grain into my image. I feel like it makes it just a hair sharper. It's almost like reverse tech. I don't know what it is, but I like to add a little bit of grain, add some texture to the image, and then it's supposed to make it sharper. That's what they told me. Like to click on remove chromatic aberration. That means any green or purple tints around edges of like shirts or this microphone, it'll take those off. Now that we did that, let's go into the color panel. Now I like to go into the color panel and go to the mix, and then I like to adjust each color of the image how I want it. So the first thing I notice when I look at this image is that green on the computer screen of what I was editing is super strong. Now if you can't see it now, you can really see it, right? So I'm gonna pull that way down, and now you can kind of see how it's darkened, right? I don't want that super visible. I kind of want the focus to be on me and my face instead of the computer screen. So I'll pull that down a little bit, and then maybe make it a little bit darker with the hue. So I'll slide that to the right and make it more green, and that'll make it get lost into the computer screen just that much more. Now I'll go to the yellow, and you can see on the computer screen on the bottom, obviously the yellow is very, very prominent in that graph I'm looking at. So we're gonna desaturate that too. Now you can see the computer screen is kind of losing itself into the background, which is what I want, so we can focus on me a little bit more. Now I'm just gonna go through these colors quick. Orange, this is where you want to be careful with skin tones. You see if I bump orange, I look like one of Mr. Wonka's workers. I don't want that, okay? And you also don't want to go way down, because then it looks like you're that little white guy from the movie Scary Movie 3 or whatever. So you don't want that either. But I want a little bit of color in my skin. You can see it looks a little bit peach. I want some more color in there. So we're gonna bump it to about 50 looks good. Even that maybe is a little bit too orange, so I'll bump that down just a hair. We'll go down to 40. And that looks pretty good for what I want. Now we'll go to red. Red is a lot around the lips and the ears and the nose. So you also don't want to screw with this one too much, or it'll make you look like Rudolph. I'm full of comparisons, and they're stellar. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna pull that red down just a little bit too, because it really doesn't, I don't want much color in the image besides my skin tone and maybe some blues in my sweatshirt, and just faint colors in the computer screen. So we'll pull that down a little bit too. Maybe make it a little bit orange so it blends into my skin some more. That should be good there. Okay, now yellow, we already fixed that one. Now let's go into blues. This is one thing that I like to either pump or take out of my image. Now as you can see, when I crank the blues, it really makes that hue on my computer screen and the shoes on the picture frame above very defiant. Now I don't really want that, but I also want the blues in the room. So if I keep that there like this, so I'm going to desaturate it just a little bit, but not a ton, because I still want the image to feel kind of blue. Like right now, to me, it feels kind of green, right? Looking at it. So we'll go into the tint. We'll add some purple into it, about +5. That'll take out some of the green. You always want to do the opposite of what you want in there. So if you want less green, you'll add purple. If you want less blue, you'll add yellow. If you want less yellow, you'll add blue, you know, vice versa. So back into the color here. Purple, the only purple I see on the screen is a computer, so we'll pull that down just a little bit because I don't want that showing a ton either. Pink, same with that. We'll pull that down, and now we're looking at something like this. So you can see the before and after, very bright, and now it's more dark and moody. Last thing I'll do is I'll go back into my light and change anything that needs to be changed. So I want to pull the shadows down even more. I want to make it even darker, and then we can pull the exposure up just a hair to brighten things up. So this is the final image that I would end with. After I'm done with it, I'll go into it and go to crop. If I'm going to crop it for Instagram, 4:5. And then on this one particular, I kind of want to zoom into me and me editing and kind of cut my chair out of there. So maybe if I move it here, I'll put my ear on that top right third. You can kind of see that there, how there's those two intersections and my ear's right on that. That kind of draws the viewer's eyes. You always want to keep your subject on a third. So if it's this third, or if I'm going to go higher, I could put them on this bottom third, but I don't have enough room. So we'll put this third right here, and that kind of isolates me and the computer screen and editing. Make it a little bit wider maybe. And that's the final picture that I would come out with. So before and after, this is what that looks like. Now that's a picture that I would post on Instagram. I actually did post it on Instagram, and that's kind of why I wanted to show you guys how I edited that one. We'll go into our second picture here, and this is a product photography shot. So this one's a little bit easier because it's very monochromatic and there's no skin tones. So basically what I would do for this one is a light. I would go more contrast, bump up the highlights a bit to brighten those whites, shadows, darken those a bit to make that darker. Then we go pump those whites up just a hair. Blacks not too much because I still want some shadow. Actually, we'll drop the blacks and then bring up the shadows a bit. So then our blacks are blacker, but we still get some detail in the shadows. Even a little bit more. So now we have that, and you can already see before and after. It's looking a little bit darker, a little bit moodier. For this one, we're going to take the saturation, we're going to pull it all the way down, right? Now it looks a little bit green to me, which I do not like. So we'll add some magenta into this one. Obviously the saturation is down so you can't tell, but it does change the luminance a little bit, which is the brightness of the color. And then, so you can kind of see here as I move this, it changes it a bit. So now that we got that, go into the effects, clarity, make it a little bit more clear. Throw a vignette on there. Throw a small vignette on there, -4. Detail, let's make this one sharp because it's a product photography, so we want those corners sharp, as you can see right there. Then we will go to optics, turn on chromatic aberration, and crop it. I think this crop is good, and boom. So that's just a super quick edit to make it darker, very black and white and desaturated, and that's a picture that I would post as well. I have posted that one. So black and white images are obviously a lot easier to edit, and that was just a super quick edit. Obviously the first one is more extensive. This one, I'll show you guys how I do this with a preset. So if I go to my preset, and if we pick, I don't like how that looks. It looks too blue and happy and summery. This day when I was shooting was actually very rainy, so that's kind of the feel I want. Smoky Mountain, I don't love that one either. That's more for the woods. This one's for downtown. I like that one better, but it's still a little bit too dark and too green for me. This is the one I actually ended up going with. So we're gonna go with this one. Now you can see my beard looks almost fake, right? It looks like it's glued on there a bit. So one thing we can do for that is we can go to the effects and pull down my clarity a bit, so you can see how my face kind of smooths out. And then you see how I darken it, it makes it super almost like fake painting like. If we go back, it's at +16 right, it's at +25 right now. If we pull that back to about a +10, that'll make my beard look a little bit more real and not so bad. Now, one thing I noticed when I look at this picture is my skin looks a little off. So I'm gonna go into the color under the orange and pull the saturation down on it just a hair, -6. Now it looks a little bit more realistic, and maybe it's a little bit even too red. That's too yellow now. Okay, so that's good there. So that's how I edited a picture with a preset, just like that. I tap on my settings and it looks how I want it to. It's blue, it's black and white, it's orange, it's gray. That's kind of how I want it to look. So there's the before, there's the after. One thing I noticed after looking the before and after though is these trees in the back, or these fake plants, succulents, have no color in them. So one thing I want to do is go into the color tab again, go into the green, and bring up a bit of those greens. So obviously I still want it desaturated because that's kind of the look I'm going for. But now you can see in the back, the greens are a little bit more saturated, popping a little bit more out behind me and making the picture a little bit more appealing to the eye. That's how I do that one. Now let's go on to the last one. Now landscapes are kind of cool because you can go a lot of different directions with landscapes. However you want them to feel, you can make them feel. Now, obviously for me, I like very moody photos, but for this one, let's edit it like it's a happy day. Maybe it's sunny out and people are riding bikes and there's birds and ice cream vendors on the side of the road, and you just got a new girlfriend, and maybe you also got new tennis shoes, and you're just having a good day, and you turn around, you take a picture of this building that has a big P on it because your new girlfriend's name is Patricia, and you really like Patricia, so you decide to send her this picture. But before you send it to her, you're like, well, I want to edit it. I want to make it look pretty just because I want it to make it look like her, like super pretty like her. So how we're going to edit this one is a little bit different. Obviously, first thing you do, go into the light. This one I want a little bit of contrast just because it's a building and I like to pop from the sky a little bit. So 10 contrast, that makes it a little bit darker, so you can already see a little bit. Now highlights, for this one, I'm gonna pull up the highlights a little bit, just because if I pull the highlights all the way down, you can see all the clouds. I don't really want that. I want it to feel like it's sunny and there's no clouds out there. So we're gonna pump the highlights up a bit. Now for the shadows, same thing. The more you pump down your shadows, the more moody and dark it's gonna look. So we're gonna bring those shadows up just as much, right? So now you can already see, this is the before, this is the after. It's already brighter, happier, looks better, like you could send it to your girl Patricia. Now whites, I'm not gonna mess with those very much, just because I like how the whites look, and blacks, I'm not gonna touch those ones either. Okay, so let's go into the color now. Like we were saying, we want this picture to feel warm and happy and fuzzy. Now, the colors that usually tend to go with that emotion are warm colors. Now, warm is yellow, cool is blue, right? So we don't want to go this direction. Then it looks like we're in Blade Runner or something like that. But we also don't want to go too far over here. It looks like we just peed all over the photo. So if we find that happy spot, maybe about right there, that kind of looks like the sun's glowing on it a little bit. And that's the look I'm going for. So after we have that, you know, that even looks a little bit too much, but then that might be my cool minded. So once we're there, let's go down to saturation vibrance. On the previous pictures, we pulled the saturation down, right? Because we didn't want much color in there. For this one, let's pull the saturation up. I want there to be a lot of color, or not a lot of color, but enough to make it pop, right? And the vibrance will make it how bright those colors are. That's even looking a little bit too yellow for me, so we'll tone that down just a hair. Sorry, Patricia. Okay, now we'll go into the effects. Now clarity, I like clarity on buildings just because you can kind of see more of it and how the building's made. So I like to pull that up when I'm doing landscapes of a city vignette. I don't really want to add one on it here because I just want everyone to focus on the whole picture rather than just the middle. Sharpening, we'll leave that where it is. We'll leave the noise reduction where it is too. Now if we go to the effects, let's add some grain to this actually, because grainier images tend to look like film photos, like it was shot on film, which reminds me of the 1960s romance, opening the car door for girls, that kind of thing. So let's add that in there a bit. We'll add 40 grain on there, maybe make the size a little bit smaller to about a 15, and there you go. You can already see it's a little bit better, right? We have all of these settings done. We will go into our color, back into the color. So now we'll adjust each color. First color I want to go to is this yellow. Now the more you pump it up, the more sunny it's going to look. So we'll leave that a bit. Just pump it up a little bit, add some yellow into that. One thing I noticed when I'm looking at this picture is that the greens down there look kind of gross. So we're going to change the hue of those greens, right? And we're going to make them a little bit more green rather than what they were, and we'll run with that, see where we can get with that. A lot of this is just touch and feel, right? So you just have to play with it until you find something that you think works, right? So saturation, I don't really want a ton of orange saturation, but we could leave a little bit in there, so just maybe -17 will work. And then blue, that'll affect mainly the sky. We'll pump some saturation in there and make it a little bit brighter. Now one thing I'm looking at is I might have blown the sky out a bit too much, so we'll go back into our light, pull the highlights down a bit. Not a ton, but just a little bit, and then that should be good. Green, pump that up a little bit, make those trees a little brighter. Good there, going to the yellow. So I kind of want to brighten the yellow a little bit just to make it look a little bit brighter on the image. So now that we have all of that image back together, I'm going to pull the warmth down just a little bit because I thought it was a little bit too warm still. And there's the before and after. So this looks a little bit brighter, a little bit happier, almost like a 1970s film look, I guess you could say. Once I'm done with this, I will rotate it and make sure this line is straight. So you can kind of see on that P building that the line, you want that to be straight up and down. So now that's straight, the landscape looks good, and I will go to one thing that comes with the premium version, which is $10 a month for Photoshop and Lightroom on your computer, your phone, and all of the works, is your selective. Now I want to add a gradient filter coming from this direction as if it's the sun. Now you can do that, and then I will go into here, change the color of this gradient filter to very warm, pull the warmth up all the way, and then kind of shade it in like so. And kind of make that a little bit warmer, like the sun's coming in there. Now, I don't even know if the sun was coming from that side when I was in Denver. That's where the shot's from, but it'll make it look a little bit warmer. So now you can see the before and after. Here's the before, kind of dark, moody, just an average office day, like you're going into a big metal building and you got to sit at a desk, right? Now here's the edit after. It looks very sunny. It looks like you're maybe just getting off work. Maybe it just stopped raining and the sun came out and there's a rainbow. You're gonna go give this picture to Patricia and frame it on her wall, and you guys are gonna get married with your new shoes, and Bob's your uncle and Sally's your aunt, and I'm Easton, and you are YouTube viewer, watcher, person. As you can see, the before and after, I think it looks better, looks warmer, looks happier, looks better in my opinion. I actually really like that photo. I might post that on Instagram, so maybe you guys will see that on there. I just edited it with you. I've never even edited this picture before. Now that's all I have for editing on your mobile phone. The way you export these is hit this share button, save to camera roll, maximum available. Now it's rendering, and once it's saved there, you can go over to your photos and it should be there, high quality, high resolution right there. If you want to post that on Instagram, you go over to Instagram. This is my photography account. If you guys didn't know about it, hiya. Go here, upload, next, boom, there you go. You'd be able to upload it from there. So that's all I have for mobile editing. Hopefully that helped you guys just a little bit, taught you a little bit about what the sliders are, what I think about when I'm editing a photo, and the process that I go through to get the look that I feel. I like to take the picture and put a story behind it. That helps me visualize how I want to edit the photo, the colors that need to go into the photo, and how I need it to look. So just like the Patricia story, or just like the raining at the car dealership day that I was shooting, those are all stories I can attach to the picture and help me edit them. So thank you guys for watching this. Hopefully it helps. I would love to see your guys' picture on Instagram if this video helped you. If you take some tips from it, please tag me in your pictures on Instagram. Maybe tell me the story that went behind it when you're editing it. But appreciate you guys watching. Let me know if there's any other videos you guys want. Do all the things that YouTubers tell you to do. Like button, comment, share with your dog, your friend's dog, your dog's friend. Actually, it's your life. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You just do what you want. If you want to do it, do it. I've been talking for so long. Okay, we'll see you guys in the next video. You guys see this clock the whole time, by the way? 5:46. I started filming this at like 5 o'clock, 46 minutes to film a video. That's not bad. Can't wait to be TikTok famous. I do my patented butt swing in the chair like this. Goodbye now. That was pretty good, huh? Pretty good. Okay, actually, goodbye now. You're still waiting for me, aren't you? You just turned the video off. You should turn it off. Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing still watching? All right, I'm gonna leave now. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go. Don't keep watching the video because I'm not gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here next time. The lights can turn on, I'm gonna be gone. And you're gonna be looking at nothing. You're gonna feel stupid.
Enchanté.
I freaking told you. I freaking told you you'd be sitting here. Now you feel stupid.